And away we go. It's just me at the moment. Not sure if Risk and or Eric are going to join. At this point, I doubt it. However, it must go on as it should. So let's see what's out in the world today or this week. Cloudflare outage disrupts X, ChatGPT, and thousands of sites. On November 18th, 2025, Cloudflare's global network outage disrupted thousands of sites, including X and OpenAI's ChatGPT, causing widespread inaccessibility this morning. Cloudflare said it was experiencing an internal service degradation in its global network and caused widespread and coincided with scheduled maintenance at SCL and Miami data centers. Downdetector recorded a surge in reports with over 7,000 at noon as affected sites returned HTTP 500 errors hitting Spotify, Canva, PayPal, Letterboxd, League of Legends, and Downdetector itself. Despite partial recovery, Cloudflare updated on October 24th, 2025 that services were recovering, but customers may still see higher error rates during remediation. Cloudflare's broad footprint, roughly 19.4% of all websites on the internet, meaning many rely on it. And switching VPN locations often restored access, highlighting concentration risks. Of course, it's not the first time that platforms' servers have gone down. However, even if you don't go down the route of the rabbit hole or conspiring about particular groups of people that's trying to manipulate our way of life, it's getting frustrating now, and also quite annoying. Because how now, of course, technology as it stands today is essential for our jobs, our way of life. Technology as it stands now has helped us so much. Yet, we have to consider what would happen if these websites were to no longer exist, and we have to look for alternatives. We have to actually go in person to a particular store or business to get the service that we want. Also, whilst ChatGPT servers were down because of Cloudflare, I actually discussed in the group chat with Eric and Risk about how people are using ChatGPT for, well, whatever they're using. And again, the reliance on AI today is outrageous. It's mental. And I did ask a hypothetical, what would happen if OpenAI was to be down? Which it did, which it happened. And seeing how people responded, like, oh no, ChatGPT's down, what are we gonna do? I can't do anything. At first I found it quite funny because, well, why is it that deep? Come on, get a grip. But on the other hand, over time, I found it quite sad because, again, these people, they rely on ChatGPT so much and other AI chatbots that are out there. It really goes back to the question if OpenAI did not make a revolutionary stance or made a revolution in technology, if they haven't made ChatGPT go mainstream like it did, where would where would we be in the age of technology today? Would we be hearing stories about technology and AI like we are hearing today? Most likely not. Because if it wasn't for OpenAI's ChatGPT, other platforms like Microsoft, Google, and dare I say, Twitter X, they wouldn't have made their own AI chatbots like they have done, similar to how ChatGPT got their success. Now, if I had a quid or a British pound for every time I discussed about I think I would have enough money to buy a week's worth of chocolate. Not that I would, however, that's still a lot of money. So there you go. Actually, in some aspects, I'm actually glad that Cloudflare servers went down because now it shows the reliance on such services and chatbots that people have on these platforms today, and seeing them go down, we're now seeing the meltdown that we have seen. No, it went down. What we gonna do? It's funny at first, but at the same time, yeah, I am embarrassed for these people. I'm genuinely am. This is concerning. This is no laughing matter. We must take matters into our own hands and potentially go off the grid. It's the only way. It will be the only way. Grow our own food, get our own water, maybe hunt some animals if there are any alive. I'm not sure if vegans would like that, however, that's how society was like millions of years ago, when humans, as it is now, existed for the longest time. That's something to really grind the gears about. Yo ho, yo ho. Off to work we go. China bans imports of Japanese seafood as diplomatic dispute deepens. China informed Japan that it will reimpose a ban on all Japanese seafood imports amid an escalating diplomatic row over Taiwan. The ban comes after Japan's new prime minister said a Chinese attack on Taiwan threatening Japan's survival could trigger a military response. China has protested the remarks, urged its citizens not to travel to Japan, and vowed to protect the safety of foreigners in China. Of course it's about Taiwan. Again, I'm not surprised. I'm also very annoyed at the same time. We know this was going to happen. However, this is getting old. There are other issues going on in this world that has to be discussed. I just now that is it. I have nothing else to say to this. It has to stop, man. Look, and I'm aware that the history between these two nations is certainly not pretty. However, if you're worried about whatever the United States are doing, well, you need to put aside your differences and work together in hopes that if in the event the United States does anything, I'm not saying they will, because I think the US are enjoying being the center of attention and giving money to foreign nations to fund whatever glamorous projects that they are doing. Well, without the US, where would these countries be? They'd be nothing. Absolutely nothing. They want to, and if these countries want to provide what's best for their people, they need to start thinking about producing their own goods and services that primarily serves their own people, and of course to other countries and people in those countries around the world. However, it's best to start local and then expand internationally from there. The president of the Almira Provincial Council was arrested for irregular contracts in the purchase of masks. Officials of the Central Operational Unit of the Civil Guard have arrested 5 people on Tuesday, among them the president of the Provincial Council of Almira, Javier Aureliano Garcia, the vice president, Fernando Jimenez, and the mayor of the town of Almira de Fines, Rodrigo Sanchez, for the case of masks, according to sources close to the investigation, have informed EFE. Masks. Very interesting. Starting at 8 a.m., agents carried out searches at the offices of the president of the Almira Provincial Council, as well as the homes of those arrested. Searches are also planned at the headquarters of several companies that may be linked to the other 2 detainees, whose identities have not been released. Investigators returned to the provincial palace on Navarro Rodrigo Street in the capital just before 1 p.m. to continue their investigation. While the media waited at the building's entrance, searches have already been carried out at Garcia's home. Jimenez and Sanchez were already under judicial investigation in what is known as the mask case. The investigation began on June 15, 2021, when the UCO searched the headquarters of the Provincial Council Development Department and arrested its then head, Oscar Liria, who was the institution's third vice president. His home was also searched. The suspect, the nephew of the mayor of Fines, was released after a short period of pre-trial detention. The case, which so far has 14 people and 7 companies under judicial investigation, stems from the awarding by the Almere Provincial Council of a contract to businessman Killian LS for the acquisition of medical supplies in exchange for alleged commissions to a public official. This is a very weird story. So, this is dubbed the mask case. And then, I'm so confused right now. How? What's with the masks? What's the big deal with them anyway? Do they possess some kind of substance that is not good for humans? Or is it just a taboo? I'm not sure what to think of this. It's very unusual. Of course, companies involved doing some kind of business. Can't argue with that. But a mask case? Really? That's just me. That's throwing me off. Uh, Anyway, there's always going to be some stories which of course, may sound controversial at first, but then there's always one key detail that just seems out of place, that doesn't add up whatsoever. But that's because there's maybe more context to the story. However, that's an interesting read. The mask case. You can't make this stuff up. It really makes you think, is this the worst that the world has to offer this year? Probably not. However, it's far better than what's going on in the world right now. It is absolutely mental. Amazon Zoox robotaxi service to give free rides in San Francisco as its expansion accelerates. Zoox, an Amazon-owned company, launched a free robotaxi service in San Francisco, allowing select users to hail its driverless vehicles. Unlike other robotaxi services, Zoox vehicles has no steering wheel, as the company designed its robotaxis from the ground up. Waymo, Alphabet's robotaxi service, opened its service to all San Francisco riders in June 2024 and has provided over 10 million paid rides since launching in Phoenix in 2020. Well, there you go, guys. Robotaxis. Are the human taxi drivers going to be in the job for long, or will they lose their jobs in the next few years? Or will these said human taxi drivers then would go on to start their own robotaxi companies and then make money that way? That, but I'm not against artificial intelligence or any kind of technology that's up and coming. Yeah, we do have to ask ourselves, how reliant will these how reliant will people be with these services? Everyone's going to be using robotaxis in the next few years. Of course, Risk, if he was here, he would have a lot to say. He says, no, we shouldn't do that. It's threatening job security for human taxi drivers, which I agree to that. I think there should be some kind of regulation to ensure that there can be human employees in such sectors, whilst the advancement of automated workers in such sectors continue to grow. Now, of course, there'll be people that says they'll be like, but AI is a great way forward. It's great to automate stuff. I would say yes. It's important that some aspects are to be automated to ensure that we save time on doing tasks. Yet again, how long do human workers have left before eventually they're out of the job? They are replaced with AI or automated humanoid robot workers that could get the job done in just half the time, double the efficiency, double the tasks completed. It's it may sound like a fantasy at first, but in the next few years, technology as it stands now will continue to advance, and loads of companies they will want AI in every aspect of their workplace. But whilst automated workers will be useful, especially during nighttime shifts or during nighttime work hours, there has to be some kind of threshold that limits how much tasks each day or each week are to be completed by automated entities, such as AI or humanoid robots. Then the rest of the tasks are to be done by humans, so that people who do want to work in these jobs can continue to work in these jobs. They're just having slightly more competition with technology that is more advanced than them. And I think that's one of the positives that can come out of technology and AI. It strives for some kind of competition. It encourages people to do better at their jobs, whilst most humans will never be as good at their jobs as a. At least there is something for humans to be aware of. And once they do enter into such workforce, again, not to say that they'll ever beat humanoid robots or AI in their jobs, at least there is some kind of incentive for humans to do better or work more efficiently at their jobs than they are currently at right now. That's just my take. First kiss dates back 21 million years, says scientists. On November 19th, a study led by University of Oxford and Florida Institute of Technology researchers published in Evolution and Human Behavior showed kissing stretches back roughly 21 million years. To answer why kissing exists, researchers led by Dr. Matilda Brindle defined it as non-aggressive mouth-to-mouth contact without food transfer and reviewed primate literature spanning species from Africa, Europe, and Asia, mapping traits across the primitive family tree. The team used Bayesian statistical for robust evolutionary estimates. The findings imply Neanderthals and modern humans probably kissed, supported by shared oral microbes and interbreeding evidence, while lip touching appears inherited from large apes, but absent in only about 46% of cultures engaged in kissing, highlighting its variability. The study provides a foundation for future research into origins like grooming and pre-chewing such food sharing. Well, there you go. The more you know. Uh, the first kiss goes back 21 million years ago. That's news to me. I think there's a lot of things that go back millions of years that we do today that have also existed millions of years ago, but we won't know it because there isn't much history besides what's already been recorded in the last few decades and the last few centuries, if any recorded documents from those centuries. Any further than that, it is anyone's guess to what life was like on Earth millions of years ago, or thousands of years ago at least. Wow, well there you go. The first kiss 21 million years ago. That's longer than a lot of people's lifetime combined. Group sues Quebec City for canceling July show of US Christian singer Sean Fruit. I think that's his name. On November 14th, Burn 24/7 Canada Worship Ministries filed a lawsuit in Quebec Superior Court after Quebec City cancelled an Expo seat booking set for July 20, naming Sean Fought as a respondent. Quebec City cited reputational concerns, stating an artist who generates significant controversy has consequences for Expo Seat's reputation, relying on a board contract clause. The lawsuit alleges Burns 24/7 Canada Worship Ministries signed a lease on July 4th, paid $2,609.93 on July 14th, and seeks that plus $5,000 in damages, the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedom announced. The Quebec City Mayor's office declined, and François Moisant told CBC, "If we did, we won't be commenting on it, as the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms consider additional legal challenges." The JCCF says the case is part of a wider pattern as it considers other legal challenges amid cancellations across multiple Canadian cities, while the City of Montreal fined a church $2,500 after hosting Froat. Well, from that summary alone, I think interpretation could go either way. But as of all I know as of now, to be honest, I can't make heads or tails on this. If I will have to say anything, no matter what your opinions are, whilst you have every right, and you are fully entitled to express those opinions, even if people disagree with them, you always have to be careful with how you express those opinions. Because if you don't, then someone, whether it be trolls, or haters, or Frout, they will twist those words and take them completely out of context and make those words out into a situation that is completely different to what the original story is. I'm not saying that's what the case is, it's just a hypothetical based off the story I just read. And of course, if you sign a contract with any organization, it is important that you commit to what it says in the contract. If at any point you break anything in the contract, of course, the organization that provided the contract to you has every ground to possibly sue you and possibly be terminated of your services. But of course, if people knew if there's something in that contract that doesn't feel right, and they say, "Nope, I'm not going to sign it," then you know what? Fair enough. Whilst it's important you commit yourself to a contract, don't just sign your name into anything, especially if you do not know what's in the contract. You will learn and find out the hard way. So yeah, whatever's happening with Frout just comes to show. If you signed a contract and you broke something that's stated in that contract, then the organization that provided you the contract, they're allowed to be on grounds on whatever they want to discipline you on, and possibly terminate your services. Otherwise, whatever you say or do, you've got to be careful, man. You never know who's going to twist your words and try and make you out of something that you're not. It's very serious, you know. So be careful, folks. Be very careful. Land tax, an increase for 7.4 million housing units in 2026. A discrete increase that could break the bank. The update of housing records by the Ministry of the Economy will lead to an increase in property tax for 7.4 million homes in 2026. BSC, the Ministry of Finance, told AFP on Tuesday evening, confirming a report in Le Parisien. It's a matter of efficiency and fairness in taxation, that everyone pays according to the type of housing they own, explained the office of the Minister of Public Accounts, Emile de Montchalin. Why such an increase after the file update? This tax paid by some 32 million homeowners is based not only on the surface area in square meters, but also on so-called comfort criteria, the precise of running water, electricity, toilets, or sinks in the dwelling, a shower or bathtub, and heating or air conditioning. Each of these criteria is added to the tax calculation, artificially increasing the number of square meters taken into account, and thus mechanically increasing the amount of property tax. However, one of these criteria, now present in almost every home, is not included in this database for 7.6 million dwellings. The operation to improve the reliability of the property tax database, which will be carried out in 2026, aims to take into account these comfort features when they are not currently included in the property tax database, explains the French Public Finances Directorate. They will therefore be automatically included in 2026 without prior declaration from the owner, resulting in an increase in property tax for the dwellings concerned. Now, I understand that people may not take a liking to France, especially Paris. However, in this case, I actually feel bad for them. Why should anyone pay extra tax for whatever appliances is in their home? Don't people in France pay enough taxes just on the income they make and just the property as a whole? I'm not sure what other taxes people in France would pay, but I know for sure that after decades and even centuries of protests across France, surely these politicians in France, they're getting crafty with whatever they are proposing and trying to tax regular everyday people. Now, of course, another French Revolution is certainly not out of the question, and I'd be all for that if that's going to happen, and I hope that that happens. Otherwise, why? Why pay extra tax for the appliances within your home? Again, people are already paying enough taxes on the income they make, and to some extent, even the property as a whole. Why pay extra taxes on the appliances that's within their home? Now, this is just me. I think all forms of taxation should be replaced with some kind of land value tax. Now, to my understanding, this is a tax that you pay based on how much land your property or your home occupies. Now, I'm not saying that should be, no, I'm not saying that should be added on with existing taxes, nor should it replace any existing taxes. However, you know what? I'll take land value tax over any other form of taxation because at least if you're paying on whatever land you're on, well, I'm not a taxation kind of person, but I know for sure, from my understanding, paying taxes on your income is nothing short of a robbery on your own finances, on your own financial freedom. In fact, people think that taxing people based on income, especially a higher tax rate on millionaires and billionaires, is going to help fix most of the world's problems. Well, no, that is not the case. Whilst everyone is making income to some extent, something that millionaires and billionaires have that other people don't is wealth, financial wealth. And if we tax people based on the wealth they have, rather than the income they receive from whatever job they're working in, again, I'm not saying it's going to solve all of the world's problems, but it's a much better form of taxation than paying taxes to your government based on how much money you're earning, depending on whatever job you're working in. Because everyone's making income to some extent. Not a lot of people have a lot of monetary wealth. And even when you're taxing people on wealth, there should be a limit on how much of a wealth tax millionaires and billions are paying. So after taxation, if these millions and billionaires are running businesses, they can use that money to go towards their businesses, which are the reason why they're billionaires and billionaires to begin with. And of course, I know a lot of people despise the lifestyles of these rich people. Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, honestly, I feel sorry for people in France, especially in Paris, where this is reporting from. That, no, imagine if this goes down in England. Surely, people across the UK would be like, "What bloody hell is this? That's a bloody outrage!" And they'd be right. It is an outrage. Like, why are you paying taxes on appliances within your home? And even if you don't declare that you have appliances of such in your home, you get taxed for that anyway. I see that as an excuse for the government to get extra money out of people in the country. That's just how I see it. People are paying enough taxes already based on their income and even their property. Come on, man. There's got to be something else. Man sets fire to a woman on a Chicago L train before fleeing, police say. A man doused a 26-year-old woman with a liquid and set her on fire aboard a Chicago L train after an argument, leaving her in critical condition. The attack occurred Monday night on a Blue Line train after the woman and a man believed to be in his 40s began arguing, and the man then poured an unknown fluid on her and ignited it before fleeing when the train arrived at the Clark and Lake station. The woman stumbled onto the platform and collapsed before being taken to a hospital, and no arrests had been made as of Tuesday morning. Oh my gosh. So we're just burning people alive now. I'm genuinely lost for words. How do people find that acceptable? And especially how authorities are not taking this particular case seriously. These authorities won't give a damn unless that has happened to them. Good grief, man. I certainly hope that woman is alright, and she recovers by a miraculous miracle. No one should be burnt alive. Why would someone burn anyone alive? What even is the argument about? That has gotten so heated. Not metaphorically, but literally as well. And does it matter the identity of this man? No. It doesn't matter what this man identifies as or where he's from. This should never happen to anyone to begin with. It's appalling how people just go on about their business wherever they are around the world, and all of a sudden, oh no, I'm on fire. My bin is blistering like crazy. And then eventually they get sent to hospital. That is crazy. That is wild. Again, I hope that woman is alright. No one no one should go through that. No one should be scared for their own safety anywhere. Patagonian blizzard kills 5 foreign tourists in Chile. On Tuesday, authorities confirmed 5 foreign tourists died in Torres del Paine National Park, including 2 Mexicans, 2 Germans, and 1 British national during a large search operation. A fierce snowstorm produced whiteout conditions with winds exceeding 120 miles per hour, 193 kilometers an hour. On Monday, as the group tracked the Paine Massif or Surikis, rescue teams mobilized as soldiers and police joined efforts and air evacuations was prioritized amid harsh weather. While officials said tourists got lost near Los Perros camp, reachable only by a 4 to 5 hour trek. With the search concluded, authorities said recovery efforts focus on bodies and coordinating reparation with consulates, while the zone and park have been closed to the public. Victoria Bond, Cornwall-based PR, was among 5 hikers killed. Friends shared video of the trek, and an SOS was sent to a Torres del Paine Facebook group as others were found alive. That is sad. That is awful. Rest in peace to those 5 foreign tourists trekking somewhere in Patagonia region in Chile. I send my condolences, deepest condolences, to the friends and family of those foreign tourists that were hiking along Torres del Paine. It's very, very unfortunate. So unfortunate. Belgian farmer sues French energy giant for damage caused by climate change. A Belgian farmer is suing French energy giant Total Energy for financial compensation and demanding reduced oil and gas production to slow climate change. Environmental groups and individuals have brought nearly 100 cases against major oil companies in the last 2 decades, with the number of cases doubling in the past 5 years. While some courts have ruled in favor of protecting the environment from climate change, no company has been forced to pay for climate change damages so far. And they probably never will. Because you know why? Because the, the urgency of climate change is not as deep as what most people make it out to be. And this is not to say I deny climate change. There are aspects in our climate that potentially changes over time that we cannot control. And anyone that says otherwise, at best, they are naive. Our planet has been much warmer than it is today, millions of years ago. Why don't I hear complaints about that? And again, there is a rise on climate change skepticism. Even with the rise of climate change skepticism, there are still a handful of researchers that will combat against climate change. Now, that's not going to go down with the skeptics. However, they're still going ahead with it anyway, as they believe it will preserve the environment and the nature that sits on top of them. Yet, they never actually experienced or even lived in the nature and environment which they are claiming to protect. If there's anything to have learned from the COP30 convention in Brazil, and the indigenous people in Brazil protested in the COP30, saying what they're doing and what they're saying will go against their way of living. The indigenous people, who their entire lives, even their ancestors, have lived in these said environments which these climate change experts are saying they proclaim to protect and preserve. That should tell you something. That should really tell you something. Now, this isn't going to stop people from going against oil companies about in the name of climate change. At this point, the more of these stories I see, the less the less I care about climate change. Not that it's a big deal. It's just it's not as scary as it's been made out to be. Anyway, look, life goes on. Whoever wins wins, and who loses, well, they lose. I don't think much people pay attention to those stories to begin with, anyway. So, I mean, they can continue. They can keep marching on with climate change. However, stories like that are just going to dwindle away in the next few years. It'll make a comeback every now and then. However, in the age of social media where you can get your information from anywhere, anytime, there is a rise on the literacy of media and technology. Those aspects should never be underestimated under any circumstances. And that is it for this episode.